Knows. That's my friend, Mr. Mackey. He wasn't really totally surprised or insulted by that. So we'll reopen our meeting, our select board meeting of September 13th by roll call.
Newman present.
Smith present.
Franson present. And the good news is we saved the Pledge of Allegiance until all of you were here. So, all that can join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have my fellow select board members had a chance to read our minutes?
Yes, I
From
would make a
August
motion to approve the August 30th minutes.
David?
I was not present for the August.
Oh, that's right, you were in San Diego. So sad. All those in favor? France and I. Thank you, comma. And where are we going next? Now we have a couple of public hearings. Is there any chance that people would object if we went to our finance and capital appointments first? Those are going to be quick. So I'd like to skip down to our agenda number 7. And these are appointments to our finance and our capital. Would you like to speak to this, Mr. King?
Yes, I would, Madam Chair. Good evening, Select Board. Joseph King, Elliott Road. I'm the Vice Chair of the Finance Committee and a member of the Capital Budget Committee. I introduce tonight for your review and hopeful approval and appointment, 3 new volunteers to the Capital Budget Committee and the Finance Committee. That's good news because if we get appointments, we're full house. These new volunteers were voted on last night at our Finance and Capital Budget Committee meeting. So they are fully approved by both committees. And at this point, they've also been approved by the town moderator. So first and foremost, Mr. Mark Gauthier for the Finance Committee, Ezekiel Ayala, he's for both Finance and the Capital Budget Committee, and John Kilcoyne for the Capital Budget Committee.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gauthier?
Hello,
Yes, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'll introduce myself. Yes, Mark Gauthier, I've been a resident here for 45 years. In that period of time, I have not served at all or volunteered in the town except in Little League. So I was approached on this and I said, it's about time I did something. So I was happy to be approved last night and look forward to working on this committee. My background is basically insurance. I work with businesses, individuals, and was a partner in an agency up until my retirement 4 years ago. So that's me.
Is that you, Mark?
That's it. I'm all right.
I am so glad to see you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Kristen, any questions for Mr. Gauthier?
No, just thank you for stepping up.
You're welcome.
No questions, but just for the record, Mr. Gauthier lives on Tanglewood Road, and I just would like to thank you for your volunteerism. As you know, I always speak highly of the individuals that volunteer because that's what drives this town, so thank you.
Especially Finance Committee. Thank you, Mark. And go ahead.
Hi everybody, I'm Ezekiel Ayala. I've been in Sterling for about 7 years now. I have 2 small children within the town, 11 and 6. And I was formerly a member of the Finance and CBC Capital Budget Committee. I had to resign due to family illness. I would like to rejoin, continue the good work that both committees do, and help out the community as much as possible. I come with 20 years of government finance experience, and I'm currently the CFO and controller for the Central Mass Housing Alliance, which is a nonprofit.
Your street address.
Oh, I'm at 9 Wilder Lane. No, I was formerly at 8 Sterling Ave in Sterling.
Any questions, Kristen?
That was welcome back.
Just very impressive resume. Thank you for coming back, returning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. I was sad to see you go the first time, so welcome back.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So I would entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Ayola and Mr. Gauthier to the Finance Committee.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Smith.
Cranston, aye. Cranston, aye, sorry. And then we have the Capital Committee, which you'll have a dual role on with Finance. And your appointment to the Capital Committee would be Mr. John Kilcoyne?
Yes.
Okay, would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Kilcoyne?
Would you like me to say something?
Short.
Very, 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 very short.
John Kilcoyne, 90 Beeman Road.
Are you done yet?
This is why I don't come down here. You know, they just don't come down here that often. No, I said I volunteered. Joe asked me, and I said, well, I'll give it another shot. I was going to say to him last night, don't assume that the appointment will be automatic here. I went through this stuff before, and it doesn't always become automatic. You remember the day. Well, I figure 9 years on FinCom and Capital, and the last 9 on your board, I think will give me a fairly good perspective on what, and bringing some good things to the Capital Committee. It's an important board, as is crucially important as is FinCom in the years ahead. So as long as Joe and Lynn keep the meetings under control, keep them efficient and timely, I should have no problem with this, you know, but I don't want to get bogged down in minutia or anything else, but I'll be happy to serve, assuming I get appointed by your board, Madam Chair. And I thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Any questions, Ms. Kirsten?
I figured he'd be back in some way, so it's good to see you.
Thank you.
David?
Just looking forward to the arguments.
Yeah, if anybody's going to keep those meetings short, it's not going to be you. Anyway, I would entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Kilcoyne to the Capital Committee.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Newman, aye.
Smith, aye.
Cranston, aye.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And you can stay or go. No judgment. Okay, and now we have, okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. King. You can go too. Yeah, well, you had the little one. I didn't know if you were staying or not. Okay, and now I would entertain a motion to open our public hearings, of which we have 3.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Newman, aye.
Smith, aye.
Grant's aye. Okay, our first one is for land release on 200 Justice Hill Road cutoff, lot number 10. Did anybody want to speak to this? No? Nobody's coming for this? Lot number 10? No? Do we have anything else on it besides this letter? I don't have anybody else signing off on this.
They all signed off on it.
Oh, okay. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So all the other departments, conservation, DPW, fire,
Yeah.
planning have all signed off on this. So I don't have a problem with it. Would anybody like to speak to it? Okay.
Ian Monjo on behalf of the Sterling Land Trust.
Uh-huh.
it was brought to our attention for the release of the land, right, Chapter 61A. This town is definitely a farming community, right? This town has voted, a lot of people have expressed their want for the town to stay rural and, you know, kind of keep its character as an orchard. You know, all of those houses there are built on orchard land. That being said, you never want to tell anybody what to do with their property. So I guess in this whole process, and I'm very new, so excuse some of my ramblings here. In this process, I guess what I'd request is, and it's in the definition as far as the protected property and the release, that the town does have the option to review buyouts and give that option to land trust or nonprofits. So I guess my request is, how do we get involved a little bit sooner in the process of reviewing these releases? That's right, and I don't have a specific end to it, but that's really the ask of. I don't know how to do it. And I guess that's
Well,
kind of where we're going.
I must admit, I'm a little confused. We've never had the land trust reviewing the 61A releases.
Review might not be the right word. I guess just notify that they're happening.
Then look at the agendas for all of the departments that have to look at it. I'm not quite sure. I suppose we could send you a notice? I don't know.
The state statute's pretty clear about what actually has to be sent to planning, conservation, us, assessors, and conservation.
Right.
And one other, I can't think of what it is, but there's no, other than it's just being a, public notice that there's a public hearing for it.
Yeah.
And then it's on all of their agendas, conservation, planning, assessors, us, and whatever the other one is that I can't think of.
Fire. Goes to fire too. So, yeah, so I'm not sure. So my guess is that the land trust would be interested in this property at some point.
This is a little bit farther down the process, so not specifically this property.
Not this property, I mean in general.
In general, right.
Yeah. Can't
Agenda
help.
number 5, by the way.
Oh, it is?
Agenda item number 5.
Oh, sit down. No, we are going to discuss it further.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
yeah, you
So
are,
unless you have something specific on this particular parcel.
Okay.
you don't want to buy this parcel. You're out. Okay. All right, without any further ado,
Do we want to take them both together or one at a time? There's also the 184.
right. So we could
Make the
do,
motion for both.
you wanted to make a motion, but there's still nobody here for 61A, for 200 or 184 Justice Hill. Okay. So then I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor?
Smith, aye.
So that vote is in respect to the land release of 200 Justice Hill Road and 184 Justice Hill Road cutoff. Ready, Kama? All right. And the next one would be public hearing for earth removal permit on 17 Stone Great Way. Do we have anybody here to speak to that?
I'll round them up.
Okay.
Folks, the board's ready for your presentation.
Yeah, you're fine. How are you? Okay, so who's going to speak to this?
I am Rich Harrington, engineer for the project.
Okay.
Okay, hey everyone. So good evening, Rich Harrington, John Durkin from Onyx, and Jim Parisi and Mandy. She's on the property every day, are here also for the applicant and owners. We are here seeking a renewal of the earth removal permit and adding 2 parcels off the back. Choxet North is facing this way to the left, Choxet Road is here, Leominster Road, Route 12 is over here with the rotary at that point. We have an existing paved driveway, a gravel driveway loop, a scale house with some pavement, which are all done with the original decision to cut down on the erosion and the dust, etc. So we have, those are the existing conditions towards the front. They've already made their way into the parcel that was permitted before with the cut face here, and they purchased these 2 properties out back. This property on the bottom was already an active earth removal permit before, and so these are the 2 that are being added, parcel 3 and parcel 49. We have 4 plan sets that have been reviewed by Graves Engineering, and we're in the process of in front of site plan we're adding a building on this parcel here for site plan, just to put all the mechanical equipment in that location there. And then what we're here to talk about is the earth removal portion. These are the same 5 parcels that we're here to get approval for and seek approval for. This area is flown by drones in unmanned aerial, so they have up-to-date elevations and grids. So what we have here, it shows you the existing proposed contours. So what we're proposing to do is to continue cutting the grade back to within 50 feet of the property line, and then we would have final grading at the end, which is your finished product, which is a requirement of your rules at the end product. So we'll be in the interim earth removal process in this location, and so we'll have criteria that we always have to do with sediment controls and all that nature while we're doing the erosion portion of that. When we added these 2 parcels to the back of this project, we also invited ourselves closer to the edge, to a wetland off the property and a stream that's down gradient to this location. My apologies, I logged on a few times last night to go to conservation and kept waiting, and I saw it canceled. Apparently there was a different agenda, so if I knew that I would have been there. But so anyways, we have walked the property with the conservation agent, and we've also walked the property along with the Trails Committee people as well. Long-term wise, as far as trails, the client's going to work with the Trails group to evolve that. It's not really part of this project as far as the permitting of these 5 parcels. Those trails and things like that might be along this edge here, but it's mostly along the access parcels, separate and independent of an earth removal permit. In accordance with your application, we're seeking relief from the same waivers from the last time. Activities to encroach within 10 feet of the property lines, which are common property boundaries within the parcels together. Any open water, as we settle out the sediments and fines from the washing of the sand and everything, we'd have that waiver. Again, waiver from fencing requirements on the top. There's plenty of buffer and protection up there, and the same hours of operation in crushing and processing. So 5:30 to 5 Monday through Saturday, and crushing 7 to 5 p.m. The original earth removal decision had some conditions, number 10, and Graves Engineering in their review letter mentioned that we should provide it in writing. We have a Graves review letter dated August 30th, 2023, to the Select Board for the earth removal review. GEI reviewed the earth removal plans and our comments as follows. Earth removal bylaws, number 1. GEI recommends that the applicant submit a written narrative to the Select Board that addresses the status of the applicant's actions relative to compliance with conditions 10A, 10B, 10C, and 10E on the original decision. So conditions D, F, and G have been addressed by way of information provided on the new earth removal plan. We already have an attachment C that was included in the site plan review, and so I have, that was up, so we did already address that with Graves, and it can become part of this meeting proceedings also. So basically, one was sediment mitigation on the Choxet Road. We have the paved entrance out there now. The access route is we were asked to show long-term planning from that direction also. And we also have some test pits and estimated season high groundwater now in the areas where we're having basins. And then we have interim grading, and we have the final contour shown on the plan there. We were asked to put everything on the plan, so what we do have is just a long-term master plan. The timing is somewhat unclear right now as it evolves with frontage. This is sheet 2, so we have frontage parcels along here for access. It's wooded today, so we may have a Mass Highway curb cut also off of Route 212 in the future. That would allow vehicles, trucks to come in, circulate around the piles and the wash plant, and then come back out at another scale and off in this direction and remain on pavement. That's not part of this right now. They asked, planning to ask us to show everything possible so everyone can review it all and get a good understanding long-term what could be a possibility. We are providing the wash plant at this location for earth removal and to improve the product leaving the site. The stockpiles are going to be mostly stone, and then we'd have sand and there's Presby sand at these two locations on opposite each other. There'll be a 75-foot travel lane and then a cut slope. Then we're into the buffer zone here for conservation from the stream that's downhill from the wetland. We can phase this in. We don't need to have the filing for conservation board of conditions to build the wash plant and get that permitted or the earth removal. We can have somewhat of a phasing plan, and we've agreed to file a notice of intent with conservation and work with them also with the permitting process. Your regulations require us to file with conservation if we do come within their jurisdictions. And so a condition of the approval, if that's how the board decides to proceed, is that we would follow up and file a notice of intent with conservation or any other application is deemed necessary with that. There's also the stormwater bylaw that's regulated by the Conservation Commission within your town. Whether or not that triggers that or checks that box, we're going to comb through that. If we do, we'll file for it. It's independent of whether or not you're allowed to remove the earth, so that's another part of it for conservation. Lastly, just the last couple of comments. So number 2 on the earth removal bylaw was talking about they have no issues with the current road access GEI off of the entrance that's paved today, and then they recognize that this is a future aspect that would have to file with Mass DOT and have it designed, etc. Right now, we'll keep the curtain closed with the berm over that location. Number 3, general engineering. The earth removal plan includes some color coding with the depths of excavation, and that's this plan here. So red is the deepest cut, so we'll have areas that are 6 feet to 10 feet, then it goes to 30 feet where it's already working in that area, and then we'd be up to 100 feet to 130 in this location, and then back down to 6 to 8 as we get back into the 50 foot from the property boundary. So we'll have a legend also there. We have these items labeled in a grid so it's easier to follow, and that'll be provided on a revised plan, which can just be a condition. It's all just regular math, possibly. So number 4 is to show a legend of the depth for that. And then number 5, there's a hatching pattern over here. That's the land that was held on or sold to an abutter. So that's just when they conveyed the land, this was hatched and to indicate that it's not our property. We purchased this piece of the land. The cell tower was held on to, and then this shape over here, the remainder was sold to the abutter on that location. So we'll label that, indicate that. And then GI number 6 does not have an issue with the proposed topography within the limits of the earth removal area. On page 2, the general comments. For plan completeness, the earth removal plan needs to be revised to include the following information. 7A is map, parcel labels, 7B is the location of the groundwater protection zone. We'll have that updated per your zoning map, the overlay map, which is more towards the bottom of the plan. Labels for the landowner, street address of the abutting parcels is C, and 7D, labels for the street names of abutting streets. And then, so when you look at the review letter from your consultant, there's 7 comments. 1 and 2, 1 has been addressed by our attachment C that was already reviewed by them and memorialized in the site plan review. Number 2 is no issue with the access. General engineering is, all the labels and everything are all on the other plans. You know, it's a story or telling the story, and then we'll take those labels and update them on the plan also. So general engineering 3 and 4, 5, 6, and 7 can all be more just clerical items to address and to be conditions of a permit if the board finds that that's acceptable. What I'd like to do now is just talk quickly about chapter 63 is the earth removal bylaw. Basically, to summarize, it says that when you remove the material, you can't go closer to 6 feet to groundwater across the entire property. The groundwater protection district says you have to hold 6 feet to groundwater in that district. So no matter where either line is, we're holding 6 feet for our finished grades above the groundwater table. So we have conducted the test pits across that area, and where we designed everything to be above and hold greater than 6 feet for that part, and that's been reviewed by them. It's on the owner to put in monitoring wells and make sure that continues during the length of the permitting process. Just one more in summary. The client has done an admirable job of addressing the things from the original permit process of cutting down on dust, pavement erosion, and complementing that with additional aspects to maintain vehicles inside and continue to work with the process of mining operation for minerals, for construction materials. So we trust that we can continue as the previous plan and permitting had, and look forward to working, continued success in working with you in Sterling. Thank you.
So,
In your packets are all of those materials, the updated information from Graves, the existing plan and decision, items from departments. We know that our folks here from Onyx are going to have to work with the Conservation Commission if they end up in the buffer area, anywhere near that, and also for the stormwater bylaw, work with Board of Health, obviously, on the wells and septic for the building, and then Planning Board is going to take on site plan review for the parcel, dealing with the building, the wash plant, everything with that, and also groundwater falls to the Planning Board as well, and obviously they have Graves working on that as well with the peer review for that. And Stephen can update
So
anything there.
what we're waiting on from the applicant.
excuse me. Your name, sir?
My name is Stephen Wallace, I'm your town planner.
Oh, okay. I know that, but they didn't.
We know that. What we're waiting on from the applicant's engineer is a revised site plan. Last week, the applicant's engineer had a site walk with the planning board chair, who noted several items that he wanted added to the plan, and a site walk as well with our conservation agent. Richard, I assume you're in the process of making those additions to the site plan?
Yes.
I doubt you're going to have that plan ready and to me in time for our department and Graves Engineering to review in advance of the planning board hearing next Thursday, which means you will likely be continued until Thursday night, October 26th. That will give you plenty of time to make the required additions to your site plan and have them reviewed by town departments and Graves Engineering. I did speak with the conservation agent yesterday. She does believe that you will need to file for a stormwater management permit because you are paving more than 5 acres. And she also believes that you need to file a notice of intent for your work in the buffer.
Writing this down, Richard?
Oh, he's repeating what I said 5 minutes ago. Yes, I wrote it down on the front walk with the conservation.
Okay. Well, tonight, our main goal is to approve the earth removal for the 2 additional lots. That is really our focus.
The existing and then the addition
The
of
existing
3 and
and-
49 or whatever they are.
Right. And those 2 were worked before, weren't they?
The bottom one was, and then
Yeah.
the top one wasn't.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions? Answers? Sir? Podium, please.
Curtis Plant, trustee of the Realty Trust in the Butter at 9 and 7 Chalkset Road. Could I have Mother Nature's telephone number?
Yeah.
I want to know, I'm going to ask her a few questions myself.
Yeah.
and a few
Everybody's got a lot of
wishes.
questions for her lately.
Dust control has been obviously to a minimum, which has been great. We do have a new tenant that is occupied, number 7, closer to the construction site. All that I'm asking, I asked it maybe 2 years ago, to be notified when they're going to be doing blasting. Our new tenant does precision work, and even though one of the machines is on an isolation pad, he has known that there's a site adjacent to us. He's more than willing to stop his production on this particular machine. And all I'm asking is that we get a text or a phone call, and that's on record. They've been been a very good neighbor for the last several years, so that's the only thing I'm asking.
Isn't it 10 o'clock every Tuesday? No? It varies? Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong pit. When is yours?
We're usually around 1 PM, but the days vary.
Okay.
Every month?
It's like once a month.
Once a month.
Just once a month?
It has varied, and I understand scheduling, and that's not a problem. They're only operating, between normal hours, 7 to 5. And if we could just get a text, they only have to contact me, and then I can notify the tenant that this is the approximate time that they're going to be blasting.
Or directly with the tenant? I'm sure you can do that. You're on property all the time, right? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Podium?
Chris Arsenault. I live at 3D Patriots Way. Could we all be notified what your schedule is? Because when we don't know that it's going, it shakes us. I mean,
Yeah.
and also we have cats that don't like it, so at least if we, literally up until they started blasting big time, they were fine, but once you started blasting hard, they're scared now even of thunder and lightning. So if you could let all your butters, and I think it's felt like all over town, or at least
Well, you
most of
have
it,
2 different sites.
that go off at the same time.
No, they don't go off at the same time.
So,
But I meant 2 different sites that would be blasting at any given time. Like, I just made the mistake by saying Tuesday at 10 o'clock, but that's Perkins.
yeah, well,
Or it's not even Perkins anymore.
we don't feel Perkins,
Oh, lucky you.
but it would be nice if we could
Yeah.
know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Possibly.
and-
Just to be able to, figure out a way to communicate with you, y'all
Yeah.
better, that we're open to that. We could have a call list. I'd have to figure out the best way to get everybody's contact info, but we could have an automated call that would notify you in the morning. It's usually automated, and it would call and it would leave a voicemail if somebody doesn't pick up, saying that we will be blasting today between the hours of 1 and 2. It's basically impossible to let you know definitively, like, hey, we're gonna shoot in 5 minutes, but we could give you a window where, probably an hour window, which we could probably hit pretty confidently, if that helps.
That would be great, because I know a lot of people in the condos are, they feel it and.
Send them a note, send them a letter saying, if you want to
Thank
be
you.
notified.
Hey, Stephen, why don't you tell us all?
When you indicate your abutters list, send them a note saying that if you want to be notified of the blasting schedule, either give us your phone number or your email.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great plan. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, in the back?
Yes. I'm Carol Levine, 16 Clinton Road. I would ask that first, before I go any further, I would ask that everyone who's watching this from home and anyone who has not been following this construction to please take a ride down to Route 12 and Chocksett Road and actually take a look at this mining operation. I think that because the swath of trees remains on Route 12, it has acted as a lovely screen for all the operations that are going on behind it. And for many people who don't come downtown all that often, who live in the farther reaches of our town, they have really no idea of the size and scale of this operation. So I would ask everyone to please take a ride down. We are now talking about permits, but the amount of work that has been done there is profoundly shocking when you first see it. And because I live on Clinton Road on the opposite side of the Oak Hill Ridge, feel it acutely. We feel the blasting acutely. There is particulate in the air constantly, despite the rain that we've had this summer. And 2 weeks ago, I happened to be down looking at what was going on down there. It was a very windy day. And up high over the ridge were plumes of particulate, and they happened to be blowing toward Redstone Hill and up in that direction. But because of the vast amount of the size and scale of this operation, depending on the wind, it can blow up Meeting House Hill, it can go over to Patriot Way, it can come even down here to the center of town. I don't think it's good for anyone's health, and certainly the blasting, as this young woman just described, is disturbing to all of us. And it's profoundly so because we now have 2 pits in this town.
We've had them for a long time, Mrs. Levine, both pits.
Yes, we have, but the amount of work that's being done it seems increasing because now many of us are noticing it where we haven't noticed it before. We were aware of the blasting when Perkins was doing it, but with 2 sites blasting, it's disturbing what it could possibly do to our homes, to our property, and I think people around town who have things like in-ground pools that are cement. We're all down here on ledge, and the work that's being done shakes our homes. So what is it going to be doing to our pools? And what is it going to do to our septic systems? What is it going to do for whatever you may have your wells lined with? Those things we may not be aware of damage to those for years, but when we do become aware of them, they're going to be phenomenally expensive. They also will affect our home sale values. And I think this entire operation fails to recognize that you are damaging the value of many of our homes. And you're also potentially damaging the size, the sense of community, and the feel of Sterling. Because my understanding is that after they finish all this and flatten that land out, They're then going to make more money by putting in concrete pads and selling it to big and small industrial operations. But as we saw a few years ago, light industry can go from being a cannabis company to LKQ, a car parts distributor. So the future of that land is going to be another skirmish the town's going to have to face in the coming decade. I would urge this board to hold off on any decision regarding this permit until after the first of the year. I think the citizens of Sterling are owed an opportunity to come down, take a look at it, maybe get together and talk about it, and really weigh in, whether it's an open space group, or whether it's a greenways group, or whether it's homeowners. Let's take a look at this and give us a fair opportunity to weigh in. Thank you.
Anything different, sir?
Just to expound, there have to be some specific concerns as well. And I'm going to be in trouble because my wife said, don't say anything, or you get
We won't tell her.
But you can, because I moral obligation to say something. You see something, you say something. So my name is Thomas Boudreau.
There you go.
I have been a resident of Sterling since 2019. I moved from Leominster in a plan to retire to a nice community that ascribes itself to be there for farming and revitalizing a downtown. And what we've seen is a town that is committed to pits. One right north of the town, one right south of the town, with a lot of blasting, and also with a lot of trucks and it was heartening to see some small businesses try to struggle there, like Emma's Cafe, and going there once or twice and just hearing the loud traffic of trucks coming from Perkins. And then, you know, in terms of the blasting, especially from Onyx, so they can create the grand Onyx Canyon, it is very disturbing. And we do, residents do get damaged. They don't report it. It's, you know, it's pictures falling off the walls or some cracks. But and the point was made. I like to hike, and that's one of the things I liked about Sterling, is coming to see the hiking. And hike, you're talking about a rail trail. There's no rail trail that's going to go there and see that monstrosity. It is an eyesore, and you can see it from 190. And you have to look back at the basic master plan committee vision of Sterling. It wasn't let's raise the earth and take out all this material, especially for some company from Acton. One, if they want to go dig for dirt and rocks, why don't they go dig in Carlisle?
That's not right. Don't do that.
But,
Keep going.
but anyway.
We welcome everyone to come to Sterling and open a business, Mr.
Well,
Boudreau.
you've got to,
Yeah.
you've got to also realize is a system. You know, if you have small businesses, small shops like No Town Goods and the Mill and Emma's, you know, they support the farms. The farm, they buy stuff from the farm. There's no real synergy between farms and these blasting operations. It's just taking material and making an eyesore for the community, which does lower the home values of the properties. People don't want to come to Sterling when they see this big monstrosity of a pit, but you want to attract them to downtown. How are you going to do that? How are you going to reconcile these decisions with the master plan and the vision, which is a great vision that this committee has? Now, with the issue with blasting, I think what we really want is that there is no blast. Perkins has been a long-standing company, and they get their Tuesday bang. But I can tell you, we all feel, and I live on Honeycrisp Way, we all feel when all of a sudden the unexpected boom comes off. And I understood that there was actually an incident where there was where not the proper safeguards were done one time with this company. So I think it's just behooves us to, as said, let people see this. It is an eyesore. It is detracting from the committee from its master plan. So I would say, as a first thing, is no blasting, and that will just stop the project, because I know if you look at that, it's a big, huge mountain of rock, and they are going to blow to get there. And if you look at that plan, those red, it's a great graph, by the way. It is going to be a canyon. It's going to be this amphitheater of rock removal. I don't see how you do that. But certainly, back in the old days, they had axe and pick. So why don't you get an axe and pick and go at it, but don't blast. So my one request, I think, on behalf of a lot of the residents is no blasting. The other one is stormwater management. Has this been looked in terms of Chapter 164 of the bylaws? Because this is going to be a big canyon. And you know what? Even and I believe there was an environmental impact report done by Sterling that indicates that the frequency of high volume rainstorms are increasing. And guess what? Yesterday. So what is going to happen with this canyon, this great Grand Onyx Canyon, when you have 12 inches of rain in 4 hours? The water is impermeable. There's no soil. There's nothing to absorb it. It's just going to be washing down onto Route 12 and into houses. So has that been thought of? Has there been a requirement to have a proper assessment for stormwater management in pursuant to Chapter 164 of the bylaws? And again, I think finally, I promise this is the end. Future development. The applicant says they're going to develop this site. And it'd be good if they had actually a plan for some buildings. But as people toward the Onyx site in Sterling, why don't you go to Jungle Road in Leominster and look at the Onyx site in Leominster and see what that looks like? Because that is the future of Sterling, which is a hideous eyesore where people dump their trash, where kids do things they shouldn't be doing, and that Onyx just disposes of their unusable machinery as a kind of a junkyard. So thank you for my indulgence, and that's it. Thank you.
I think we should make a note too when people are speaking, that is Sterling's industrial zone. That's part of it. Listen, part of the thing is...
But you can keep it moderate, because it was a small pit, now it's, there's got to be a balance.
Okay, I'm just saying, it is an industrial zone, number one, and number two, we need that. Yes, the vision, if you look into the master plan, it's not just attracting, it's not just the farms and the homes and the open space to protect, but we also have to protect and bring in more businesses. We got to do it. Or our taxes.
And you lose the property value, the property tax. How much do you get from property tax from the residents of Sterling? A small percentage? How much percentage versus that pit?
Taxes on the pit versus home taxes?
All the homes around here.
Yeah. Well, that's what helps keep our taxes they are. Where are they at, 14.3 or something like that? That's where it is. You see the other towns struggling because they don't have anything. We get so much for what we give. I mean, I'm not defending, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that we also have to understand, as well as, keeping our open space, which we have open space, ask DCR, ask the land trust, we have open space. Keeping a farm, that would be my plus. Nothing broke my heart more than to see the Blanchard Orchard go to housing. However, if you don't have the people that want to do the farming, which I know from experience people don't want to do, this is why all these farms bring in people from elsewhere to take care of their apple orchards, to pick their apples, etc., and so on. I mean, it's got to be done. But how long is it going to last? We don't have any 22-year-olds that are saying, geez, I hope my dad keeps the farm for as long as he can. And that's what happened up there. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to work it. Mr. Plant?
I'd like to address a couple of the comments that were made from the two previous speakers. And it sounded to me that it was quite clear that they're trying to put fear in some of the people's minds of the town of Sterling that this is a bad choice to make as far as an operation in an industrial area. They're going to be increasing the taxes exponentially in the future in a very short period of time. I've never seen a construction site that is actually very pretty during its construction process. We built our first building there in 2000. And there was blasting going on then. And we didn't have cats in the room. We did have pictures on the wall, but not a picture fell off the wall, nor did we have plaster cracks in our building. Did we have noise? We had noise. But the further they get away from us, the less we get. But it's the accusation that property values are going down is ridiculous. Property values have gone up exponentially, and no one has ever complained that there's a pit at the corner of Chalkset and Route 12. That's utterly ridiculous. Thank you.
Kirsten? No, Mrs. Levine has already spoken, your turn.
Okay. I guess I was wondering, I know Graves had said that you needed to have that legend and it's not there. It's a clerical issue. Also, I was at Concom last night, so I was expecting you to be there. I don't know what happened with that, but I just wanted to get their take on it. They had mentioned that they asked for a letter of intent, and they did not get that, or notice of intent. They did not get that, and they had no supporting paperwork for their meeting. I don't know if you sent anything over to them or where they were supposed to get that paperwork, but they weren't really able to discuss this because they didn't have any information. So I'm somewhat uncomfortable knowing that we don't have updated information from Concom. We don't have the legend. I don't really want to make any decisions with conditions with something of this magnitude. My question, I know we have updated information from Graves. Last I see, they were on site for earth removal, not anything to do with any planning board stuff in 2022, April of 2022. So do they not come back for the next for earth removal? When did they?
The August 30th memo is for the earth.
It's for the earth removal? Okay.
And Graves attended a department meeting with
Okay.
these
The only thing I
folks.
have here mentions 2022, so I just wanted to make sure that that was taken care of. I do wonder, I know it was a question of mine, as somebody mentioned up septic, you know, there are homes up on that ridge, and we know how we all feel it around town. What does that do to a septic system? I really don't know, but that's a good question, and there's nothing from Board of Health. I guess that's a good question for them, how it may affect. And then particulate testing, I had read, I don't know if we've done that for any of our blasting sites. And it was my personal opinion in reading through our earth removal bylaw, the chapter 63, article 10, that for a project of this magnitude, you may want to have an engineering consultant specific to that project. And it's my opinion that that would be a good idea for a project of this size.
My only concerns are what Conservation and Department of Public Works, Police and Fire are asking for. If those conditions are met and satisfied by them, I think Onyx has been a fairly good neighbor to everybody. They've met any problems that neighbors have had as far as debris in the roadway. That's basically the only complaint we've had, other than other than debris in roadway. We haven't had any issues that I'm aware of. So, as long as the conditions are met that the other departments have concerns with, I'm okay with it.
I did have another question with the parcels. Is that the parcel 3? I believe it was
Richard,
parcel
could you
3.
flip that over again? Right to the parcel back, now.
Is that 71-3?
Yes, 71-3.
So I always go on GIS when we're talking about parcels for a meeting, and I just am wondering, the owner of that parcel, their name is nowhere in any of these applications, so I'm not sure why that's missing. the owner of parcel 71-3, comes up.
It's like Rand's LLC.
Do we have documentation on that? Because everything I've seen is under the name Gargolinsky.
It was Gargolinsky. We sat down with the assessor's office, and then the fire department came through and they issued new street addresses.
For clarification, the assessor's office updates the GIS maps on an annual basis.
Okay, good to know.
That's what I was just trying to find out the date for.
Right, it's terrible, the website right now to find out the right owner in that area is not, it's on the list of improvements.
Sorry, I'm John Durkin from Onyx. I just wanted to, Kristen, we did meet, is it Bree or Bry at the site? I apologize, the new ConsCom agent. From our meeting, what we understood is that they wanted to hold an informal hearing and just have a discussion. They wanted 2 copies of the site plan. There was no NOI to be filed until after that discussion. So we didn't rush to get that in. She said there was no way we'd have enough time to submit that prior to that meeting for everybody to review it. So we didn't accelerate that, but our intention is to get that in over the next week or so. So I just wanted to clarify that. It wasn't that we didn't provide it when asked. We were told that there's no way it's going to make the agenda at this point. So they'd love to have a map just so they could review it and talk about it, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wanted to be clear that she didn't ask and we didn't deliver. It was just, it wasn't going to make it. So it was that Thursday of last week, same
Yeah,
day we
so
walked with the
I'm not
planning
speaking for
chair.
her by any means. She identified 3 weeks prior to the next hearing, we need to submit the notice of intent. So we're targeting that date of normal filing. That process is going to go on in parallel with any other site plan in this. So what we're trying to do is, it's difficult not to hold up one permit for the other, then you're just doing this.
Yes.
So your rules specifically say that if we're in their jurisdiction, we have to get a permit from them and apply. So we've already said we'll do that. So what I do know is the buffer zone is here, then the stream has a buffer zone here. There's already a haul road from the previous owner in this location, so it's already disturbed. We walked up there, and the idea is that we'd be lowering that grade further in the buffer zone in a previously disturbed area. That's independent of, it's part of the earth removal section, but it's going to be an interim phasing, so if the board's comfortable, that's the area that we're talking about filing in this location for the earth removal. Everything down this area along the river and the riverfront area is already completed. There's no activity for earth removal along those resource areas, so we're going to identify the phasing, which will be the site plan in this parcel, which has no buffer zone, the wash plant and this pavement, which might be site plan, might be stormwater, may not. To address the commentary, Graves asked about the stormwater compliance with the stormwater management policy. When you look at the definitions in the stormwater bylaw, there's pre-development and post-development. Post-development excludes construction-related activities, which is what we are. We're lowering the site, we're removing earth removal, and then at the end, we'll be putting in a new plan with all the stormwater management policy and comply with your bylaw. Right now, Section 8 of the standard number 8 of the stormwater management policy says that the runoff is too dirty for the regular treatment for recharge, and they just clog. So we're unable to provide what you're looking for in your bylaw because we're in the construction phase right now. So that's kind of a, so we comply with that requirement, we're just in the middle, you know. I think that's,
Yeah, that was the discussion.
yeah, I mean, and that was in Graves, it's in the, like comment number 11, he talks about the hydraulic and stormwater management. Number 11 said no information was submitted. The applicant needs to demonstrate compliance with the Mass DEP stormwater management standards and stormwater handbook. So we wrote hydrology and stormwater management as a requirement of post-development conditions, which are standards 1 through 7, 9, and 10, and not construction phase conditions requiring sediment basins and standard 8. So the site plan complies with the pollution prevention plan for standard 8. For the building, it's being developed as a BMP to control potential pollutants by bringing things inside the building as opposed to having trucks and working on things outside. So that's a mitigation thing in addition to the gravel and the pavement that the applicant has stepped up and done, which is not a requirement for earth removal, as you know. You don't need a building for that. So we did talk about that, we mentioned it, and so we're working with everybody down the same parallel lines, and respectfully, our request would be to allow that to continue underneath your regulations and proceed to hopefully close and issue a permit with some conditions, if possible.
Okay. Anything else, Brian?
Yeah, I had.
Here, podium, please.
Sure. A few questions. I'm Brian Klein from Hotel Road in Sterling. I guess just introduce myself as going back to the rezoning of some of these lands, including subject parcels that are subject to new earth removal permits, or at least one of them is subject to a new permit. That was one of the parcels that was rezoned at the annual town meeting in 2007. And at the time, I was the chair of the Open Space Implementation Committee, and I worked very closely with the landowners at the time on the rezoning, and I actually supported the rezoning as an individual, but also my board unanimously supported this rezoning as the Open Space Implementation Committee. And given what people are complaining about that may feel really crazy, why the Tree Hugging Society is embracing a mine. But I guess I'll tell you, my training is as a scientist and an engineer, and I believe there's a need for salamanders, and I also believe there's a need for like 16 types of sand in civil engineering. So, and I know this isn't a sand mine, but I just give you that as an example. Materials are necessary to build our homes. They're necessary to build buildings in Boston, to develop sites, etc. So it's a balance. The bottom line is land's a limited resource, and we need to balance things. So we need to balance riparian zones with mines, and I'm a believer maybe at times the noise is a little bit more than we might want as a community. So these arguments seem valid, but the support of this rezoning that really gets us to Onyx being able to pull together 5 earth removal parcels was enabled by me as much as anybody in this town, as far as I'm concerned, because I remember, I think it was Nancy Kristoff saying, is this the best and highest use of the land? And my visceral answer, I feel it in my chin right now, was yes. And I still believe that. And, it could go totally sideways, but I believe there's a better chance of the town hall and the townspeople making it go sideways than Onyx. And I feel that Onyx, my sense is that Onyx is a good partner because they're not just an earth removal entity. That the intent, and we need accountability to this intent, is to build pad sites that serve our vision, or the Economic Development Committee's vision, or the master plan's vision of what such sites are needed near one of our 2 interchanges on I-190. We need to grow up and implement our master plan. We need to consider recommendations like Kirsten made, that we might need one engineer that looks at the multifacets of this activity. You can't just look at the earth removal. You can't compartmentalize this and silo this assessment, or you're not really master planning. Because the success is in the glue between the chapters. Sustainability doesn't have a chapter. And economic development probably has a chapter, but without sustainability, the industrial part gets washed down the Monusnock or down the Nashua, or you suddenly lose your water supply, or people die. And I think, this is, we were close to this in Leominster this week, so we're all feeling it. And I'm fortunate to have been on site walks this week, and I've met Rich multiple times, and I can attest to his generosity in answering questions. He's been very transparent, and so far from a site walk standpoint, and I'm doing this as a volunteer. I'm not on a board in the town, but I was with others from the town, including Blaine Burchard, who is also doing this as a volunteer on an ad hoc committee, but on the side he's serving on the board of the DPW. And what's important to know about Blaine is he developed part of Stratton Mountain, the side of Stratton Mountain. So he dealt with this crazy stormwater stuff and the difficulty of building, you know, sustainable homes and structures and bridges in Vermont. And he can go back and is accountable to his, because of who he is, he's accountable to his work product. And he's not really concerned with what he made because he works to a high standard. And we're really lucky to have guys like this in our DPW, but we're also very lucky to have them on the sidewalk, because what it does is it gives Sterling a better sidewalk, a better extension of the Wachusett Rail Trail, and it actually gives Onyx better pad sites that are more valuable for them to sell. And if they sell for high value, guess what? Our tax base is higher. And the people who buy them build more expensive buildings, and it cascades forward in a positive way, and it pays our bills. So in addition to Blaine, we had Steve Chanis and Colleen Abrams from Wachusett Greenways. And when I got involved in this project in 2006, a year before rezoning, Colleen was the president of Wachusett Greenways. She still is. And in addition to that, the second architect on the team, second retired architect, is Chuck Plosted, who is the chair of your Open Space Committee. And he's implementing vision set forth by the same committee when I was chair many years ago. So I just want people to know that there are people trying to work for you. We all need to be patient. And I'm sorry for taking so much time, but in the spirit of what I just said, I strongly believe we need a continuation. And one of those reasons is the engineer, I think I heard Kirsten recommend, doesn't exist yet. So we don't even have an engineer that's skilled in reviewing this and giving a recommendation to this board, and also doing the site plan review.
Question, do we have Graves Engineering? One person.
So have all the entities agreed to Graves? I mean, I may have
Graves is our
misunderstood.
peer review engineer, so they're doing that, they're doing site plan. I would imagine that they would also be the ones that would do stormwater if 53, you know, if that would come into play there.
Well, that would be up to.
But that's conservation. But they are the town's.
But just to understand the nature, I'm here to knock down the chop between Onyx, who I believe to be a good partner in this town of Sterling, that I don't work for, I'm not a volunteer for directly, I'm just a resident. I'm just a guy who bought a house from Carl Carini 28 years ago and had just dug a sonotube out that I'm not very happy about. I want a higher standard. And I think what we need to recognize is the Concom is not happy because they feel like Rich no-showed them last night. And what I told Concom, hear me out. No, don't interrupt me, please.
We're stopping right
He did
here.
not no-show them. They gave him the wrong hot link for a Zoom meeting. Mistakes get made, and I told them that. I said, I'm certain. Essentially his car could be floating down a river right now. You have no idea where Rich is.
No, it said it was allowed to do hybrid. I logged on,
Right.
tried three times.
So
I checked the
I'm giving-
website again and said the meeting was canceled.
Right, but I'm saying I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but they're still upset, and it's their prerogative to hire Graves. Nobody in this room hires Graves on behalf of Concom. They make the decision.
And that's fine.
They're the jurisdiction. So if that's fine, it's mutually exclusive
I think
for
we're
this
getting-
not to be a continuation if Kirsten's recommendation is not honored.
Wait,
That's my
wait.
point about,
Brian!
without it,
Brian!
there's no master plan.
Brian, breathe.
I'm breathing.
You're not breathing. Breathe.
Okay.
Okay? And let me finish. We are not here to do this whole plan. We are here to renew and expand the earth removal permit that they already have. That's what we're here for. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, as you well know, that they need to go through. They have to go to the planning board for all the site work that needs to be done just for the washing station and the loops, et cetera, and so on. They need to go to Concom. They need to actually go to, and get the stormwater done. Graves works for all of the different departments here as far as an engineer. He's the peer engineer, not just for the planning board, but for some of the other departments. So, they tried to do the Concom thing, and it didn't work out, and that happens. But should we penalize them for an earth removal permit that already exists for 3 out of the 5 parcels So they can't continue, so that they don't have to keep coming back to board after board after board. I mean, they already have to go to 3 other boards. The fire station works with them, or Tom, you work with them, right? So, you know, how do we even,
I can answer the question, I think. I think it's a
Slowly.
disservice to them.
slowly,
Okay, I think it's a disservice to Onyx and a disservice to the townspeople to proceed with the approval without getting Concom's opinion. Because Concom didn't have any paperwork in advance of their meeting last night. There was nothing on the table except that which I put on the table as a visitor in their meeting. And that's not necessarily Rich's fault, because I don't know why that happened. But I can tell you, I asked two of the members whether they had material in advance of the meeting that they could forward to me as a visitor to their meeting, so that I could prepare for their meeting as a guest. They had nothing. And I was like, oh, maybe it went to their junk pile. But then we got to the meeting and they had nothing on the table. And so we did, ultimately in Rich's absence, and it would have been great if Rich was there, because like I said, my experience with Rich is awesome. I told them, give Rich the benefit of the doubt, you know, to the extent you can discuss this in Rich's absence. You know, I'm interested as a visitor in what your opinion is. I'm trying to look at a rail trail extension and maybe some like, I don't know, fishermen's paths, maybe some hiking in the riparian zone of a trout stream area. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so they talked about it a little bit, and they told me some of their concerns that they have right now, and to me, some of the concerns were significant enough that more time is needed for Concom, and actually their opinion isn't gelled yet. They don't have enough data to make an opinion. And as much as Graves may be qualified to serve as the entity that reviews the plan, I believe that to be their prerogative, and I say that as an engineer.
that's fine.
I have 2 degrees from the same school that the operations manager of this mine went to. I hung out with him in the parking lot before the meeting. It doesn't mean I'm on the take. I want to work with these people, and I'm not trying to hurt them, and I'm not trying to hurt Town Hall. I'm trying to respect the townspeople and get the best work product for all 3 groups. And actually, if we think about it, we're all the same people.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
If I may suggest a way forward. At your instruction, I can start drafting conditions of approval for this permit. In the meantime, you folks should review the conditions from last year's permit, decide which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to toss, and which ones you want to modify. We can discuss them at your next meeting, and if you find them acceptable, you can close the hearing and take your vote.
I would, even on top of that, just with the conditions, I would like to see the legend, and I would like to hear from Concom after they've had a chance to review, just because the parcels are very close to things that a lot of people may not know what's going on up there, you know, so.
All right, our next meeting is in 2 weeks. I don't know when Concom would, once a month.
But
so that's all.
if the notice of intent is filed, I mean, if it's not, then there would be an enforcement action.
I think the agent could probably give her.
Yeah, so she's well aware, and I know has been working with them, so all of that would be played out in the notice of intent application, which is far more stringent than an RDA, so yeah, they'll definitely have items to add to that.
Okay. So David, where do you want to go besides home?
Honestly, I'd be okay with moving forward with the permit.
I don't have a problem with moving forward with the permit with the conditions that we, I'm sorry. I forgot. I didn't forget, I just was moving on. as far as, moving ahead with the earth removal permit for those properties with the conditions that we would lay out, and hopefully would have ready at the next meeting. So, yes, sir.
So, Joe Arsenault, Patriots Way. I've heard a lot of talk, but I haven't heard anything about risk mitigation. I haven't heard anything about liability mitigation, insurance coverages for any damages that do occur from damages to people's properties or damage to the town, the site as a result of the excavations. And I believe it's incumbent upon those granting permits to be sure that those insurance coverages are in place and that the town is adequately protected from having a future costs, as well as the individual homeowners.
I'm not sure, Joe, about the individual homeowners. For instance, and I speak from experience, not Onyx, not Perkins, not even in Sterling, but in another residence where we believed that the blasting on a site or construction of a new site was at fault for some cracks in our foundation, the insurance company said, yeah, no, we can't prove that. So I don't know how far that goes. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I have some experience, obviously, from being around the blasting industry and quarrying for years. The proper process when there is damage or you believe there's damage is you let the fire department know, and it's a fire marshal's regulation that they follow for blasting operations. I'm speaking specifically to blasting if there's a claim that, hey, we believe vibration has caused this damage. And there's a formal process to go through there where the fire marshal gets involved. They look at the seismic monitoring reports that the fire department gets daily. They get them the same day we shoot with the explosives on site. And there's a parameter from the state fire marshal of air blast and vibration. And both of those frequencies are monitored, and there's a threshold that we can't exceed. And that's readily available as public information for you from the fire department. And the process is you let the fire department know, they begin a claim. Our blasting contractor has $10 million in coverage for these type of events, and they then hire a third-party consultant paid for by their insurance company to review your claim, and they make a determination on whether or not it was viable that they were able to damage your property or anybody else's property. That's the proper process for blasting.
Obviously, I went around it the wrong way.
So in terms of risk mitigation, are you doing anything with instrumentation to measure the vibrations?
Yes, every day. Every day we shoot.
And how far
Okay.
away from the site are you taking those measurements?
We have a map that shows the location of all the seismographs that the fire department has, so you can request that. It shows the locations of them at property lines and where they're taking readings.
Request that from the fire department?
Yeah.
Actually, Joe, Tom Kokonak's here, and he can answer those questions for you.
My name is Tom Kokonak from Lieutenant on the fire department is the permit authority for blasting. So any blasting activities that take place in town, permit has to be pulled from the fire department. We review the application to make sure that they're in compliance with the licensing and things like that that they need. And then at the time the blast event occurs, the fire department goes and witnesses the blast to make sure that the actual blasting operation is done as required by the code. With Onyx's operation, they have 6 instruments, seismograph instruments that are set up that are monitored by a third party seismologist that does all of the measuring. They measure both the vibration that's generated and transmitted in the ground. They also measure the energy that gets transmitted through the air as well. And the fire code has very strict limits that they have to stay within for the purpose specifically of preventing damage to abutting property. So every time Onyx blasts, we're aware of it, we're there to watch it, and we get a record of all of the instruments the readings taken by the instruments during the blast. As part of the permit application, they're required to show that they're bonded, so they have a bond on hand that it shows that they've got liability protection on top of the other insurances and things that they carry. So we regulate it. We pay very close attention to it. We do our best to try to represent the abutters and the people who have concerns to make sure that everything is done in strict adherence to what the fire code requires.
Thank you,
Much
Tom.
better job. Thank you.
Okay, well, I would entertain a motion that we continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is, what's the date?
So, is that 30?
September 30th? Can't be. Thank you. Glad somebody knows. Till September 27th, at which time we will have the order of conditions. And Stephen, you will aid and abet
I
in
will
that.
draft up something for you to take a look at.
Thank you. All right,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Grants and I. So we'll meet again here in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. And thank you, Richard. That's his name. Just it's called Richard, is that his name? Okay, so I would entertain a motion that we exit executive session. I mean, not executive session, our public hearing. Hey, it's been a long week. That's only 2 weeks. Second, all those in favor? Alright. Okay, we're gonna take like a 4-minute break, maybe 5. So, welcome back. All right. Again, I'm gonna skip and go to our agenda item number 6, which is our Animal Control Board advisory procedure discussion. And I want to do it because I know the chair has been and gone because she didn't want to sit here, but she's back. And then I also have the chief and Kelly Jones. And then, do we have anybody else from your board? No? Okay. So this came about because we did have a complaint about some of the procedures for the advisory board. The funny thing about the complaint, if there's anything funny about it, it's from one of your board members. Okay. So, Kelly, can you tell us what happened?
Kelly Jones, Sterling Animal Control Officer. Do you have the date of that meeting? The 18th of July. So July 18th, Animal Control Advisory Board held one of their monthly meetings. The agenda for that meeting was submitted probably 2 weeks or so prior, as I was submitted a little early. I was heading out of state on vacation. My last day of work, I was contacted by residents on North Cove Road reporting an incident that had occurred on July 4th, that 2 dogs had entered their property that were loose, went after numerous of their farm animals, and at that time, several of their animals were still unaccounted for. This had been the 3rd recorded incident involving the same dogs. The owners were known, and the owners, apparently they had spoken to the owners after the last incident. They were concerned about the way that the owner responded to their concerns and questions about the incident. Thought that the individual was dismissive and wasn't taking the matter seriously. And so they requested to come to an animal control meeting to be on the agenda to discuss the matter. The owner of the dogs in question is in fact the newest member of the Animal Control Advisory Board and the complainant to this matter. So at my discussion with the chairperson of the board to let her know that we needed to add this to the agenda at their request, I asked if she was able to assist me with that matter, because at that point I was out of the office, and away on vacation. So my understanding is Ms. Sadler updated the agenda, or amended the agenda through the town clerk's office prior to the meeting. On the day of the evening, the complainants on North Cove Road, they did attend the meeting, and they expressed their concerns with the multiple incidents of the loose dogs. The first of which, 2 of the chickens were killed by the dogs. And then there were 2 other incidents where the dogs entered their property and went after their livestock. At the completion of the meeting, the matter was discussed. With the member was asked to leave the room while the matter was discussed with the rest of the board members and myself. And after the meeting, we received the complaint from the board member. I believe it was the day of the following monthly meeting, and we discussed the matter that evening at the meeting as well. So that's pretty much the background.
So both the person that complained about the dogs and the person that owned the dogs were actually at this meeting?
Yes.
All right. And then you asked the dog owner to leave because you were discussing her?
Yeah, so the board asked the parties each...
Yeah, we can use names. This is all public record.
Yeah, so the
that might be
residents...
easier.
The residents at North Cove Road, Ms. Gorfinkel and her husband, they expressed their concerns to the board and myself, and then the dog owner, Ms. Monjo Gaines, she expressed her views of the matter, and both parties were left, and the matter was discussed among the board and myself. I believe the board came up with a list of recommendations to ensure compliance with the bylaws on behalf of Ms. Monjo Gaines. I decided at that point to issue what would be the second citation to Ms. Monjo Gaines for the loose dogs. It also came to our attention during that meeting by the animal inspector that one of the dogs that had been loose was in fact under a 45-day quarantine.
Jesus.
And so that was a violation of the quarantine because the quarantine was released the week after the incident. So that was also reported to the state.
Okay, so I guess I don't understand. Lack of notification is what she's saying as far as not being notified. This is your member and the owner of the dogs, and her inadequate documentation.
Yeah, so I believe what she's citing for lack of notification, which would be Animal Control Bylaw 16-8, Section F4, which I have here. Is under animal control complaints. And it does state, let me just make sure I'm on the right spot. I'm sorry, 18-6. F4. So it does state that the Animal Control Advisory Board may review all incidents subsequent to the third offense at a duly noticed public hearing for which the offender shall be provided with notice at least 7 days prior thereto, and an opportunity to appear before the board and explain the circumstances of the repeated violations. So I believe what she feels is that she's citing that in the pretenses of a formal complaint, or that I had brought the matter to the board for review when in fact it came in as a public request to be on the agenda. And I saw that as no different than if they had just showed up at the public session to express their grievances. That she just happened to be a member of the board, so she was there.
Kelly, isn't this a situation that you could have taken on by yourself as opposed to using the advisory board?
It could have been, but because the complainants requested to be before the board.
Yeah, before the board, but she didn't request a hearing, so...
No, not a hearing. It was not a formal complaint.
That's what I'm saying. So really, the advisory board should just say, you know what, you have to talk to animal control.
That's why we have the board, is we try to
resolve and listen to.
Yeah.
Listen to the
It's not
townspeople.
working though, is it, Terry?
This is the first instance, okay? We've never had a board member.
All
that
right,
is-
let's stand up and introduce ourselves.
Terry Sadler, I'm the chair for the Animal Control Advisory Board, 8 Deborah Lane. We've never had an incident where a board member has been present and complained about, okay? So she felt blindsided by the fact that they came in to complain, which we have every month. We have people that come in and complain about, certain things. And we try to resolve it, and it's, it's worked. Unfortunately for her, she just happened to be the one that they were complaining about, okay? I feel like for her, it was an easy way out to say, it's our fault that her dogs, on a second occasion, have gone after these animals on these people's property. The people on this property, the complainers, they free range their animals. They are not fenced, okay? They're not fenced at all. Chickens, goats, they're just free range. So it really...
North Row Road?
It's North Cove Road.
North Cove Road?
Yeah.
Free range.
Free range, I mean, no fencing, okay? So it was very vague, when they came in to say, well, they thought possibly, they could have killed the chickens, and they're not sure because they don't always go out back in the poison ivy area to count their chickens. I mean, there were a lot of little factors involved.
Okay,
But what Jill is complaining about is the fact that we did not let her know
Right.
that these people were coming in. They
Nobody
asked
could have
her.
called, nobody could have called Jill and
We
said,
could
by
have
the
called
way.
Jill. We didn't even know if they were gonna come. I got back from vacation, like the day before our meeting. I had posted it because Kelly was on vacation. I mean, it's a busy time of year. So it wasn't that she was blindsided. We didn't even know if they were gonna show up. We said, look, it's come in at 7:15. If you come, they come, okay? And they did. And it wasn't a hearing. It was just somebody coming in to complain, like, it's open. Anybody can come anytime, any of our meetings, public session, to come in and voice their opinion about.
But you posted it on an agenda.
I posted that somebody was coming in to complain.
So when you posted it on an agenda, it wouldn't have been nice to call Jill and say, hey, by the way, we had complaints on you. Okay, so I get that. You have some thoughts on this whole thing, Kirsten, I understand.
I was just wondering why the board members didn't have the updated agenda. I believe, and I could be wrong, they obviously wasn't there, but she had mentioned that they didn't even know that anybody was coming in because they weren't given the updated agenda themselves. I believe it was posted 7 days prior to the meeting.
It was. I mean, I went into Kathy and I.
Right, so it was posted, but then the members don't get an
And when
updated agenda.
I have the original agenda and I have what was updated when I went in there, okay?
When did you update it? The day of or the day before?
I don't know, I have it here.
So she also, and this was just what she told me on the phone call, was that when she came into the meeting, I don't know who said it, somebody had said, well, we know who we're talking about tonight, or, kind of like, letting her know that, like, oh yeah, we know who's coming in to complain about whom tonight, and she actually didn't. So it was just seemed a little.
Nobody knew that, whether they were gonna show up.
Now it sounds petty.
It was
So-
July 6th.
Yeah, it seems like
Well,
there
we
was
need
some
to
petty
do-
things
It was
going
July
on.
6th that it was posted, okay? That's when I went in to see Kathy. I specifically had written down, that we're having an appointment. I didn't get to talk to the people. Kelly was away. We didn't even get a chance to call them. Like this meeting, you look at what the agenda is. I don't know.
Yeah, people don't do that.
We get called out on Facebook because of her incident. I'm saying, on the Sterling community page, saying that we had favoritism because she was on our board, and she threw that out at them when they felt like she was being dismissive. She goes, I'm on the Animal Control Board. You can contact me through the Animal Control Board.
Yeah, that's not smart either.
I know, but that's what she said. Because she was upset.
Now we're in
you know?
a, he said, she said, and we
Yes.
don't even know who killed these free-range chickens,
We don't
really.
even know that they really were killed.
Yeah.
We don't have any pictures of it.
Okay, so, yeah, kind of a mess. Kelly, how important is it for you to get this advice from the advisory board? Do you want them to field your questions, answers?
In that situation, I wouldn't have unless the complainant had asked. I mostly rely on the board for dangerous dog hearings and nuisance dog hearings, because that's the entity that they would go to according to the bylaws.
Those are for hearings, it's not just for
Correct.
people to just walk in. If they got a complaint, they should call Kelly. I know she was on vacation, but she also has a backup. You know, so that's really could have avoided some of this, I would guess.
But some of it, if it doesn't go through us or and it can't be resolved to Kelly, it comes to your board. That's where it goes. I'm just letting you know.
Watch the zip trip.
I'm not saying that.
Me and dogs, nah.
I'm just
saying.
like this, right here. If it can't be resolved with that, it would come to your board. And again, it's the first time it's ever happened that one of our board members has had loose dogs more than one occasion. On the first occasion, she was, warned and told, you can't let these dogs run loose like that.
Yeah, that's a Kelly Jones thing. But
Is
where
there
are
any
you?
way that we could have meeting minutes posted?
Yeah.
Because when I heard the complaint, I'm like, oh, let me go look at meeting minutes. And there are no meeting minutes posted. So when we do get complaints or say there's litigation regarding a dog issue that we handle, there's no way for us to easily go back and find that information
we have them, we
ourselves.
don't post them.
Well,
Right.
it's legally, you need to post them. So if there's nobody on the board that can do it,
Marion Lawson can do it.
oh, Marion's on your board for crying out
Well,
loud.
she's our secretary.
Well, there you go, Marion knows better.
Yeah.
So if you would ask her to do that, that is step one. I mean, this is really a discussion about the procedures and giving people a heads up. I mean, if it's a hearing, it's definitely posted.
I apologized to her for that, because I said I didn't know if they were gonna come or they weren't gonna come.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that they asked for it. It was, 20 days later that, we had our meeting, so I wasn't even sure that they were gonna come. I hadn't spoken with them.
Yeah, I would just tell them, that's the beauty of having something. You're an advisory board. Talk to Kelly.
I know, but that's part of the, again.
It's like
what we're
here.
supposed to do is make it somewhat easier and work with our animal control officer. That's,
Okay.
Anything
for you, David? Too much, huh?
Yeah, it's, obviously the procedure wasn't followed, right? To the letter that it was spelled out in the bylaws, right? So
No,
I think,
it really wasn't. We don't, if it was anybody else, she just happened to be on our board.
Right, I
They would
understand.
just come in and complain about her. And she's sitting there as they're complaining about her. How can she not, respond to that? They're talking about her as if, she,
So if she wasn't on the board and these people were coming in to complain,
they wouldn't even know
would
about it.
would the person they were coming in to complain about be
No.
invited to the meeting so that they could
That would be
give
a
their...
hearing. We would have them come in for a hearing. This was just someone coming in with a complaint, which is, and
Which
again,
could be done over the phone.
It could be done over the phone.
And
but-
was, right, I believe.
Originally, but they wanted compensation for these animals that were, killed or stressed and killed.
but I think one of the mistakes here is that it was posted as part of an agenda on a meeting, correct?
Right, yeah.
It was posted, as an appointment, not as a hearing.
Yeah.
And as a hearing, then you notify both parties. And we have them come in as a formal hearing.
But still posting it as an appointment.
I believe, I was told that the people that were coming in to complain also were not told, and they had to really rearrange their schedule to get there, because they also weren't told that they were on the agenda.
They asked to be on it, again, they asked to be on it, so.
So they should just
So
know
we
to check the
scrambled down
website
there
to
and
see
put
if
them
it's
on it.
there, or? Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there's really, if somebody asks to be on your agenda, Terry, there's really no reason for you to scramble to try and get them on it, They'll have to wait.
Just
or if
tell them to
it's
show up,
really urgent,
that's all.
No, even show up, that's up to you. But if it's that urgent, definitely they can call directly to Kelly.
And in that instance,
we give them a time so that we can be prepared. That's, you know, I mean, I don't know. Would you rather them just say, just show up? I mean, some
They weren't
people
given,
do.
they weren't even told they were on the agenda, I think, it was the problem.
They
Even the
asked to
complaint-
be on it. I
complainants.
mean, again, people, it's posted. I don't, you know, I don't know. It's the first time it's happened. I've been on this board for probably close to 15 years, and it's the first time it's ever happened, you know, and it's the first time it's ever happened that we've had a board member.
We want to continue to see that you serve on the board
Yeah.
as volunteers. So, I mean, the resolution here is just to try to
Follow the bylaws.
Just up the
follow the
game.
bylaws
Yeah.
in future.
And, you know, and if looking at the bylaw, you know, a lot of the things should go through Kelly, and things that go on there would be at the request of the animal control officer. So, I mean, if it's something you don't feel comfortable handling, then it could go to the animal control board, but,
It seems like
And the
there's just
posting of the minutes, just so that
that needs
people
to
can,
happen.
right,
Period.
yeah.
there's a series of errors and omissions that were not intended, I'm sure. It's just, that's how we get to where we are.
Right.
And a person that was angry that their dog was caught again for a second time.
Like when your kid gets in trouble. Couldn't be my
It's
kid.
easy to pass it off on somebody else when it's, you know, when it's your own fault.
Yeah.
I mean, she practices with us on our board, and, you know, it's difficult for us to have that kind of situation. That's all.
You might need some people on that board that less biased towards animals in general. So, I volunteer, Chris. All right.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes.
Just on the second part about the inadequate documentation, I don't know about the actual complaint, but in terms of, you know, Kelly's documentation for other things that we've dealt with, it's been, you know, above and beyond, so I don't think that's anywhere in.
Right, no, Kelly is not.
Kelly has been way above and beyond
Right.
documenting everything we've had.
There's no complaint against
So,
Kelly.
I mean, for her to come back and say that there wasn't documentation, there's more than sufficient documentation.
Okay, so that's it, follow bylaw. Opportunity, post some minutes. You know, and people have to understand, minutes don't have to be forever long. It's just really what you discussed in your vote. That's it. Call it a day. Not all of this. Do you think any of this is going into her minutes?
And if
It's
people
not.
see those minutes, they may find that they need to take more control of their animals if they see that there are consequences in hearings. So they might not know what goes
All right.
on.
Kelly, can we do anything else for you besides give you more work?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, Chief, for your never-ending support.
As always, it's a pleasure to see you all.
Always a joy. I think you're lying.
Yeah.
Okay, and now, finally,
All right, we're back at number 5.
Dan Monjo, Sterling-Lancaster.
yep,
So,
you're back up. Now it's
yes.
really your turn.
Now it's our turn. Our Dan Monjo, Sterling-Lancaster. So we'd like to be added to the notification of Chapter 61A releases.
We can probably set it up so that you're notified because, you know, although if you look on agendas, you would see that there's those releases. 'Cause those are public hearings all the time. So we could somehow notify you, but what would be your game plan on that? I mean, do you?
It's really working with the landowner or purchaser to see if there's any way around it, right? Because when you break up contiguous open space or, you know, hiking trails, you know, in our town, right? Or breaking up orchard space or, you know, however you want to define it, you don't get that back. So that's really one of our concerns, right? That's why this specific property that we were talking about earlier wasn't like that. that was already broken up, right? That's kind of on an island, but, in other situations when you are, like you could have DCR, you could have a long tract of land where people
PCR
can
has some property, maybe you'd be interested in their property.
Yes.
I mean, they only have, what, 42% of what we have for open space? Minor. So your expectation is not to be part of the decision-making, like, this goes to all of the different boards, and we decide, do we have any use for it? Does recreation have any use for it? Does planning see a use for it, et cetera, and so on? And when they all say no, that's when we usually release the piece of property. Then after we release a piece of property is probably the time that you would want to go and see these landowners and say, hey, you know what, I'd like your property because I'd like to farm it, or I'd like to put in an orchard, I'd like to keep the orchard.
Well, upstream of that decision, even working with open space and working with the separate committees of, use of the property, I think would be very useful. That's where we would come in.
So I think a lot of times there are private sales of chunks of property, and then they kind of get, so we're not privy to that until we get a land release and it's already kind of chopped up.
Right, but some of those releases are part of larger tracts, right, where they're just taking a piece off, which doesn't really follow the spirit of a 61A, right? It's either you're protected as a farmer, you ain't. Chopping those up isn't really, the idea of what that's really protecting of your land property for your town. So us being just notified, we make no decisions. We're a private organization. These are private landowners. We don't want to get in, we can't get in the middle of that. That's not our intent. Our intent is to make sure that we're providing the best recommendation, or if there's anything we can do to preserve open space that we can possibly do, let's do that before it's released and before it's out of hands. That's it. We're not looking for
You have money to buy these people's property? Okay. There's a lot of reasons when we see a parcel come through, or like Kirsten says, once it gets to this far, we don't have the money as a town to say, oh, you're selling that piece of property, we'd like to buy it for, a ball field or something. Senior housing would be nice, but, that defeats your purpose.
So if there are areas that you're interested in specifically, if you, alert us, alert Concom, because it goes through them as well, might know that there is an intent to purchase that land, and we can make sure that if it's an area that you're...
It's really the notification, because DCRs also has their antenna up around everything around the Weeki-Peaky watershed, right? So it's really just a notification. That's all we're looking to get.
But I think what Kirsten means is, are you looking at a piece of property that might be abutting something that you're already interested in?
Specifically at this moment?
Not
but
right now?
It's really the spirit of the 61A
Okay.
releases that.
By the time the town is notified about a 61A release, they already have someone who is ready to buy that land. They have put down their purchase and sales. So it doesn't just come up and say, well, we're thinking about selling this. It comes to us saying, I've got a buyer for this 2-acre lot for $300,000. And then the town has the option of saying, we'll take it for $300,000. But we don't have the information ahead of time telling us that any landowner is considering a sale.
Right. Get it at the end of the game.
Yeah, right.
Understood. We get it after that. So if we can get one more step closer.
You guys go around knocking on doors. Who are you kidding?
We try.
I know.
We'll do more mailings, right?
There you go.
I'll put in the next newsletter, or Peter will put in the next newsletter.
But, and I also
like to echo what you just said, Dan. And I represent both Sterling-Lancaster and OSEC.
Right.
And I think OSEC likewise, like a town committee, would like to be informed. And we have in our updated open space plan a listing of all the 61A properties. And OSEC could work with Sterling-Lancaster and with other town committees to prioritize which parcels have the highest ecological value, serve as wildlife corridor or other considerations. And given that supposedly we have 6 months from the time, I guess, the landowner announces that he or she intends to sell, till we have 6 months to explore if there's a way of having resources from different places that could allow a sale of particularly critical properties. So basically, I'm echoing what Dan said. I think it will be good for both OSEC and Sterling-Lancaster to be notified.
Okay, you want to introduce yourself, Peter? Introduce yourself.
Okay, Peter Peterson.
There you go. OSEC and the Land Trust. So you have this information as OSEC.
Yeah.
Why don't you share with him? No, I don't need to see it. I believe you, and I know you have it, but why isn't the land, why don't you share that information with the
No, he
land?
has a listing of the current properties. What we're asking for is when they come up for release.
But again, we don't get that until the end. And having somebody wait 6 months for a decision from any board, it's their property. Why would we hold them up 6 months if they've already got a buyer? I think that would be something that I couldn't do morally. They've already, they own the property, they pay taxes on the property, minimal taxes, I admit. However, why would I hold them up? That's just my thinking. I think that's always been the thing.
We wouldn't hold them up if there's if we don't consider this a critical property. But if there's some properties that really join others, I mean, legally, the town of Sterling has 6 months to make a decision.
I understand that, Peter, but we don't, and as I was trying to say earlier, if Mr. King would give us a little budget there, that would be very nice, but we don't have the money. So if I say I have somebody, I have this 61A that I'd like to have released, and I say to them, God, I'd really like that. We could use that for a trail or a playground or whatever, but I don't have the money. Could you wait 6 months?
Yeah, I don't.
Versus the idea that this other person has the money and they still want it and they want to build a house or maybe even a farm, who knows, So that's where I've had this problem better for years as far as the 61As. We just don't have a pot to stick our hands into to even put a deposit on something like that. Meanwhile, the land trust does. What, you guys have...
Let's not go crazy, but...
I've already been there.
I mean, really,
Not
it's,
bad.
when they come up before committees, we would just like the notification.
Yeah.
That's all we're after.
But to me, it sounds like he's got a better line to it than we have.
No, I mean, it would be a matter of exploring probably ahead of time what state funding that might exist of particularly critical properties. I mean, I need to educate myself also well ahead of time of properties coming up. But as Jim French had indicated in his communication, this is an action where we feel that rubber stamping of such a, say, oh, we cannot afford it, is leaving out the opportunity to, at least in some cases, try to see what could be done.
Sure. Carl?
First thing I want to clear up is it is 120 days, it's not 6 months. And my personal suggestion to you would be that if you check with the assessors, and because they have all the 61As, and you decide with them which parcels you think have the most importance to your committee's trust. They have to approve it before it gets here. So by going to them instead of to us, you get it a little earlier. They, talk to them. They have all the information on 61As. You tell them what you think is, an area that you're interested in, and then they can flag it so that when that comes up, you could perhaps go to their meeting and discuss with them. And that way, here it's almost too late.
Okay, and that may be part of my
That's a good idea.
assumption or misunderstanding. I thought because it's coming out of the the protected status of, where they are tax-wise, that it would come to this board earlier as the assessors. I'll go to that.
We're the last board to get it. It goes through Concom and planning and
The assessors is
before it makes
really
it to us.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
And because even then you can get the property members and owner's name.
Up front. I'll go to that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Don't tell them we sent you.
Maybe on Monday. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, so now, Bill, it's your turn.
Oh, okay, we're still here.
Yes, we are.
So, I know I've said a few of these things before we did get the sign off. Monty Tech will do the bench footings that we have at Peg's Pond, just an update on that project. Basically, they're waiting for halfway decent weather to be working on the memorial wall and the footings there. I guess I'd go back to the bottom bullet point.
Wait, what did you say? They all left.
It's just Bill starting to talk. It
Jesus,
has an
Bill.
effect on people.
Go to the bottom one about a potential select board meeting, maybe next week perhaps. We would have 2 finalists for appointments, one for the COA director, which I still haven't decided. I have a final interview tomorrow, and we are in the process of filling the assistant collector, which we're down to 2 that we are working on to determine which one will be. I don't know what your availability is next week perhaps, but that would give time for overlap and notice, at least on the COA director time.
Somebody's... I don't care. I can't do anything. Well, I'll make myself available anytime before 9 and after 6. That's it.
Before 9. Come on.
We used to have them like at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
So if that's possible, we would have those 2, and I think something has to go over to the planning board from the ZBA relative to multifamily, and that would fall into the timeline also. You got the I think it was sent over, right? Do they have it?
Well, we have to pick a meeting now so that it can get posted. So what's good, David, do you have any good time?
I'm always a good time, you know that.
Rumor has it. Well, we hear from Vicky, but that's okay. How about you, Kirsten?
Anytime's fine.
Tuesday's the worst of the days for me, but I'll make it work.
It depends on David now.
Tuesday,
Tuesday's fine with me.
time?
What, Tuesday, Wednesday? We'll make it work. 8:30, 8, 9?
Oh, Tuesday's bad for you, he said.
I have a meeting at 9. That's the only thing that
Okay,
comes
so
to me up.
forget Tuesday. Pick another day.
Anything else is fine.
Monday, Wednesday.
Monday.
We don't have enough time to post.
Yeah. It's only, you post it tomorrow, that's 24, 48, yeah. What time Monday? Come on, this shouldn't be so hard. Do you have to go to work on Monday?
Scrap work. Pick the time. Earlier the better, if we're gonna do it.
8 o'clock.
Remind me when I get in. Post this immediately.
Oh, right.
Otherwise,
All right,
you
9
don't
o'clock.
make the 48.
I don't care what time.
Fine. Anytime's fine.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock? All right. I'll get the whole of the rest of the day. All right. What else?
Just sending you a reminder now. We did receive the Community Compact Grant Best Practices for 2 items, which Joe will be happy about. One would be on the capital side, and one would be on the budget document side. I don't believe that it's official yet, since we don't have the contracts, but that will likely be happening. I did mention the finalists for 2 positions and 1 thing for the planning board. Obviously, the fair was over the weekend, and want to thank obviously the fair committee and public safety and everybody that worked it, and definitely the volunteers, and also public works and public safety Monday night for the storms. Obviously, we did not have nearly as much damage as Leominster, but we did have our fair share of things, and just the amount of time that they've spent out over the weekend and Monday night, and a majority of them today after hours doing some things. So big thank you to all of them. We did hold a department meeting Tuesday. What morning was that? What day is it today? I don't know, someday this week. Yeah. Went over things, so we'll be sending out the budget and capital documents to them to make sure they are well aware of what the timelines are going to be moving forward. And we did receive petition for a special town meeting coming up, so we have 45 days to 45 days to hold it. So we've got to pick that date sooner than later. I did recommend a couple to you. I think the 16th and something in October. Those are Mondays.
In October?
Yeah, so we have to have it done before the 28th. I did mention the 16th and 23rd as possible options. But
We have to have the meeting done in 45?
We have 45 days, yeah.
To have the
Yep.
meeting or to
Hold the meeting.
post a meeting? 45 days. Okay, so when do you want to do it?
I mentioned or proposed the 16th or 23rd. I've checked with the moderator. Those would work for her. It would be up to you guys ultimately to call it, so. We do have additional articles that we can add for some things.
Yeah, make it worth their money. The citizens petition has everything to do with this,
The observation hole, Title V requirements.
and the citizens that signed off on that understand that no matter what the vote is at town meeting, it means nothing?
Well, it would urge the Board of Health to rescind that. That is the language of the article.
Go to a Board of Health meeting in Mass and urge them to do it that way and save us, a couple of $1,000s? I mean, that's my date night.
That is their discretion.
Well, that's getting to be your time of year.
Stop it. What's good for you?
I mean, they're both fine. I would opt for the later just to give the people in town more time to know what's coming up, but.
Historically, Kirsten, nobody shows up anyway.
Things I am also worried about, if we do it the last possible week, if there's any issue, we run out of time real quick, and we're looking at either that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or early Saturday.
I didn't do 16th.
And I think the 23rd may be the spooky walk in town.
And I have jury duty.
All right, well then that says it all, so 16th it is,
All right,
yeah.
so why don't you just tell us the 16th?
Oh, you know,
You were on the
it's not
board.
my decision.
Not my
Just give you
decision.
options.
I just can't make it. Okay, and town
I'm not
council,
gonna be gone unless I get sequestered.
and then town council, you'll notify them.
I had sent them an email today, obviously, one of them was on their way here today, so,
And then
when I got here.
the moderator.
She's aware, both are fine.
Okay. All right. Wow, what other good news? No? All right. Bless you. Kama, you have anything for us?
No.
Okay. All right, well, I want to echo Bill's thanks to the Fair Committee and all the volunteers and the vendors as well, and it was a tough weekend for the fair. Really tough. I mean, they had some breaks in the weather, but the crowds are not what they, I'm sure, not what they would anticipate. But we do thank for those people that did show up. And then tough week too. It's always tough when you have to let the general public know that we lost another iconic member of our community in Bobby Temple. Died a week ago Monday. And as everybody knows, Bobby was an integral part of the Legion, and he's the one that set up the Parade of Flags and Memorial Day and Veterans Day and so many other things. He was a good man. And he was aptly tagged as our Zip Trip hometown hero. So our condolences to the whole of Bobby's family, his wife, children, and sisters, but also his Legion family. It's a big hole to fill. So, anything, Kristen?
Just echo everything you just said. Make it quick.
As Bobby used to say to me every single time, make it short, Maureen. Fine. David?
Same, make it short.
All right, Mr. King?
Thank you very much for the appointment.
We're squeezing you in?
Yes, squeezing us in. Thank you very much for arranging that.
We could have been out of here at 8:30. One thing I should mention that I didn't mention is to thank the search committee for the senior center director. They put forward a couple of good candidates. So it was Mr. King and Kathy Carlin and Mr. Mackey, as always.
Pandell.
I'm getting there.
Okay. Just didn't want you to forget.
Pandell, Kevin Beaupre, and Veronica sat in as a consultant and did a lot of interviews and narrowed it down, and we did second interviews, and hopefully we have sent Bill a good candidate.
And you should thank yourself for being an integral part of that as well.
I was just really,
And a member.
I was there. I will entertain a motion. Mr. Mackey, I'm sorry, did you have anything?
All set, thank you.
Oh, good Lord.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Smith, aye?
Newman, aye.
Grant and I. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Victoria.